To pronounce it?
DÁstous.
DÁstous. All right. Stéphane DÁstous. He's the founder and general manager, Eidos Montreal. And he's here to present the Montreal case study on innovation, project management, and cluster success in Quebec. And off to you. Yep.
Thank you. Okay, everybody can hear me? That's good. So I'm very honored to be among you at the NASCOM GDC 2013. I've been asked to talk about a bit of the success story, I think what we can say about Montreal and the video game industry. And I have been also asked to talk a bit about the project management in video games. So let's not wait. I have a lot of slides for you guys. So basically, as I just mentioned, before getting into the meat of the presentation, I have a couple of stats, data, that will, I think, really impress a lot of people about the gaming industry. We'll talk about the project management and also why choose Montreal if you have any intention to grow in the world market. So, I'm an old guy in the industry, almost 50 years old, 3 wonderful kids. I like to say that I have a diploma in industrial design. Why I like to say that is simply because in industrial design you need to work with artists and technicians every day. So, like I like to say in the video game industry, it's a high-speed collision, a high-speed train collision every day between tech and art. And that's where the management needs to step in. Does anybody know about Project Management Professional, the PMI Institute? Well, I'll talk about that eventually. So I've started my first chapter of my professional career was in the aerospace, in fact. At Bombardier, where we're actually building the plane, and at CAE, where we do the flight simulators to train the pilots. And the bridge, why people ask, how come you came into the video game industry? Well, when you're doing a flight simulator, it's pretty much serious gaming. It's simulation for training purposes. Video game is simulation for entertainment reasons. So yes, I had the chance to work at Ubisoft Montreal for several years as director of operation, and also I founded and managed the studio of Eidos Montreal. So, how many people have been to Canada here? Okay, this is my first time in India, so I wanted to show some figures that could compare both countries. India is the second largest in population in the world. Canada is the second largest country for its land. But our population obviously is a neighborhood of Mumbai, maybe. It's quite impressive, and I don't know how many years it will take for India to, I think, maybe take the first rank in population. But what I like about this graph is it's this versus this here, for this range of the population. So this, I don't want to go too deeply into this. I know that we would love to stimulate these 2 lines because I think our countries can do a lot more business together. And I forgot one row here about sport. India and Canada are champions in hockey. You guys are the experts on field hockey, grass, and we're the experts on ice. So there's a lot of common things between both countries. This slide here, because sometimes I do a presentation where people are not, let's start, who plays games, let's say, on PC? Who plays games on consoles? Who plays games on phones? And finally, who plays games on tablets? So a wide range. Very good. Thank you. So I like to compare sometimes video games with the movie industry. And basically what I'm trying to say with this timeline is that basically the movies have been there for quite a while. The video game, if this can be considered as the first game, well, basically this means the video game industry is 3 times younger. Okay, it's a third of the history in time of the movie industry. So we're a very young industry, a very fast-paced, evolving industry. I don't know much, I don't think there's another industry that moves as fast as the video game. And that's why people that are working in it love it, because it's unique. Maybe you have already read all this, but it's just to put the context of video games in the pyramid of the entertainment revenue pie chart. Well, I tried to find something more recent than 2008, but this is still valid. In 2008, something happened. This is the movie and this is the music. And around that year, we really surpassed these two very well-established industry as for total revenue. And obviously, I think right now these were the estimates for, I think this was taken in 2010. I don't think we have hit this number, but I think a safe number is $75 billion worldwide in video games. And the bottom chart here simply shows where does the consumer money in entertainment goes. So you truly see that people are really investing time and money in games. I think also the presentation will be online for anyone that would be interested to take a closer look to all this. This here, in Canada, we have the Entertainment Software Association of Canada, that every year they update an annual report with the latest and greatest statistic for the video game industry in Canada only. So they have established that just in Canada, the economic impact strictly in Canada is over $2 billion and growing. They have also stated that despite these hard times in the video game industry, there's a lot of wind, there's storms, a lot of turbulence. But despite that, the companies, almost half of them, are predicting to grow in the future years. And who are the ones that are working actually in the video game industry in Canada? Well, the stereotype, the prototype person would be 31 years old with quite a high revenue if you compare their age and their revenue. Why? Because, well, resources, talent is the key component in creating great games. So, where does Quebec position himself within the Canada industry of video games? In Canada, as you may know, Vancouver, Toronto, and Montreal are 3 big hubs. Vancouver was certainly maybe the first one to be established in Canada. It has been established maybe 20, 25 years ago. And in recent years, they got a little decline. In Toronto, this is the more recent hub. They're quite active, especially in the indie landscape. But Quebec, with this number, has the lion's share of the hub. We have 53% of anyone who works in the video game industry, and when I say this, it's for content creation. So we have the lion's share, and it's growing every year. This number also has risen because in recent years, Montreal has really witnessed a new wave of indie studios. Very often, these were the senior guys from the big studios wanting to start their own thing and all that. So this number has quite increased in the last few years. So that pretty much, I wanted to give you those stats so we can now actually talk about the meat of the presentation. Who knows what's a PMO? It's not the Prime Minister office, that I can tell you, because that's often an acronym for it. It's Project Management Office. So, I've been asked to talk about this because not a lot of people know that there's actually project management well established in certain studios. So, back 10 years ago, Ubisoft Montreal was really embarking on a very aggressive expansion phase. And they hired me with this job description that I never had by a former letter. It was simply explained to me like this. He says, Stéphane, you'll hire, you'll need to coach, and you'll need to manage the managers for us to be able to increase our production. We need to do this as fast as possible without losing control, if that's possible. So, since I'm a guy who really likes challenges, I said, heck, why not? But this here was the main, to what extension they wanted to take their expansion. So that was the start of the project management at Ubisoft Montreal. So how do we reach our goals? Now you need to understand 10 years ago in the video game industry, it was, and it is still, a very creative process. We need to sometimes reiterate, we don't need any managers who are telling us you're over budget, you're late on your schedule. We need the creators to be free. That was maybe true when the investments weren't so high. But 10 years ago, when the second generation or the previous console generation was knocking on the door, we knew that the rise of production would occur. So you couldn't leave improvisation as your only excuse for creativity. So I said, okay, first of all, by the way, at the time at Ubisoft, we were 450 people. And all the producers and associate producers and the coordinators, there were very few, and they were the ones who were hired several years ago prior to that with no real experience. So I said I need to hire good young people to become strong managers that knows that what it takes to create a good video game. That means project management, you need to control three things, like in any project, by the way. Money, time, and scope. Scope, you could say quality, but it's a three-legged chair that you need to balance every day. If you want more quality, expect that it will certainly require more money or more time, and vice versa. So hire people, find them, hire them, train them, coach them. Now, there weren't a lot of producers back then with a healthy project management experience, so I needed to take some risks. And in Montreal, we still have a very good animation industry. We have a toys company, And I mention this because the toy company that I'm talking about, I discovered that they were a great fit because they were in the entertainment business. The product business needed to be shipped on a certain season, and these guys worked with technicians and artists. And so by really digging a lot of CVs, we did find young, unexperienced people, but had the right reflexes and the right motivation. Afterwards, you need to implement tools. You need tools. A simple napkin with the schedule on it seems nice and fun, but it doesn't work when you have multi-million-dollar projects. So you need to have simple tools, not complex tools, because you're going to be losing a lot of people here. So very simple but effective tools, ones that you can build upon. Has to be centralized somehow for the upper management to have a dashboard of some sort. And it has to be updated every day. And thirdly, once you have the people, the tools, now you can really put focus on how to respect the processes and the methodology that you need to be using to have correct project management. So, I like to put the word transparency as the first word because back then at Ubisoft we had 7 projects, and every project was a little kingdom. You couldn't have any information out of them. And it was 7 silos, and it was very hard. There was no sharing between teams, and it was very opaque to see their project status. To do so, to break these barriers, you need to collaborate. You need to really convince people that it's not because you are in one project, in one kingdom that it will be successful on the long run. And upper management needs to take sometimes decisions. So that's where you need to share between teams to be successful on the long run. And this motto is you have heard this obviously very often, but it's quite simple, but it's to put in effect that is the challenge. Say what you do and do what you say. It's that simple. And a lot of people, when they understood that I wanted to do simple steps forward, that we will be able to succeed. So what came out of this? So the major achievements were that we increased from 450 people to 1,450 people in less than about 3 years. So that's a net 1,000 people. What we did also is we actually tripled our capacity of production. So we were managing 21 AAA projects in different stages, obviously. And also we established a PMO, Project Management Office group. So we introduced PM tools, project management tools, methodology. So an example of things that really stayed after all this were a global dashboard that you could see the health of the project. We brought in simple planning tools, but centralized, so we can have all the projects together. 10 years ago, it wasn't that simple. Now it's much easier. We have great tools now. But 10 years ago, it wasn't that easy. We really implemented a risk analysis. That was really, really important. Before every major milestones of phases, conception, pre-prod, and production, we did a risk analysis to make sure that people understood and to make sure that people were aligned on the same risks. Talk to a programmer and talk to the art director. They have 2 agendas, but eventually you need to come to one agenda. We did postmortems, very, very detailed postmortems, to make sure that people that were working on a project for years could say their story afterwards. And the postmortems were managed by a centralized department called the PMO. It wasn't the producer who was managing it, because the staff were maybe afraid that if they were writing something a little bit harsh, that the producer would maybe blacklist him on something. So it was important to have this clear line of communication. So you can imagine, with 1,000+ people, with several projects ramping up and ramping down, you need to have a centralized tool to manage those 1,000 people and plus people. So we established all the people that will be available at certain times and projects that were requesting people. So we really matched the needs with the demand. Stage gate. Stage gate is very important. So this means in crucial milestone periods, the team had to deliver a deliverable that was presented in front of, I could say, an external board, senior board. And this board decided if the project was on rails, if not, what were the risks. So they had to really show the money at every stages, not just at the end. This wasn't there when I came. WBS, that's his work breakdown structure. This is really PMO talk, because people were filling out their timesheets with, a simple amount of hours they got paid. But actually, we wanted to know who did work on what when. The W5, that's really important. So we establish a detail, not a too long list of codes if you were working on conception, pre-production, or production. In production, alpha, beta, and all this. For what type of deliverable? So at the end, we could say that the pre-production had cost us X amount of money. It took us X amount of man months.